So let's start with this story. What attracted you to this particular story?
The Enfield case, I think, for me, it felt like the natural story to tag onto this following following the Amityville haunting, which is what we open this movie with, and the Enfield case just seems like the perfect sort of balance, and it mirrors exactly what we are doing with the Amityville case. In that both stories both stories are highly sort of publicized, and also they have their fair share of controversies as well. And I just thought, it was the perfect cinematic backdrop to set number two against.
So, and tell us what this story is actually about.
It's about the Warrens going crossing the pond to England to help up with this family that is besieged by this particular, this rather malevolent entity or poltergeist figure that haunts the family home, and in particular haunts this young girl, and basically just makes it a living hell for this family, and so the Warrens go over there to try and help them out, and that's essentially what it is. And it's based on a true case that happened in the late 70s.
Got it. Yeah. And where do we find the Warrens in this one? How have their characters evolved?
Well, yeah, I mean, one of the things I love about the first movie is the Warrens, is Ed and Lorraine Warren, and so with this one, I really wanted to sort of grow with them, expand on their characters a bit more, and just see, where they've come since the first film. And so then for them emotionally, in this particular story, Lorraine has a horrific vision very early on in the movie, and that is something that worries her for the entire duration of the film, particularly that involves her husband, and that's really where the dynamic is in this one, is she's really trying to look after him in this one. Meanwhile, while they're trying to help other people in the process.
Now, with the success of the first film, did you feel any additional pressure when you took on or started filming this one?
Yeah, I felt a lot of pressure in with this movie because the first film was so beloved, and I wasn't quite sure if I can live up to the expectations set by the first one. But I knew if I was going to come back to this, I got to step up to the plate and come up with a film that at the very least tries and honor what it is that people love about the first one. And so I worked very hard in the story with the characters, and worked very hard with the actors as well to try and craft a film that honors the first movie, and hopefully at the end of the day make a sequel that is worthy of the first film. And it is very hard to make sequels to any kind of movies these days, let alone one in the horror genre.
True. So why do you think the first one was so successful?
I don't know. I think it's a combination of things. I think people really enjoy the scary set pieces. I had a lot of fun crafting those, but ultimately I think people love the characters. The characters feel real and they feel fleshed out, and you don't generally get that in horror films, which is such a shame to say, or at least in modern horror movies. And so I think part of my love for classic older school horror movies kind of lend itself to more character development. And I think people really like the characters, and they fall in love with Patrick and Vera's version of Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Mm-hmm. Now, talk a little bit about the production of this. How did you recreate the house?
Right.
That had the poltergeist?
Yeah, obviously one of the things I wanted to do was to make the movie feel and look different to the first one. The first one, took place on an isolated farmhouse in the middle of America, in the middle of nowhere. And so with Conjuring 2, I love and relish the challenge of taking that and putting it into an urban setting, and put it into suburbia on the outskirt boroughs of London, so it could not be any more non-isolated, surrounded by lots of heavy traffic, pedestrians, cars, and set in a council housing community area, and so it has such a different look to it, and I really love that, and so it became a challenge for me. And one that I really wanted, which was, how do I make something that seems so plain, almost boring and conventional? How do I make this scary? How do I make this exciting and interesting? And that was really my goal.
Great. So what do you hope people take away from this this Conjuring 2 audiences?
I hope they enjoy the movie at the end of the day. It's a fun movie, and I hope they that they see we all worked very hard to craft a movie that we all really believed in. I mean, whether or not we hit our goal, but at least that was, we had high aspirations, and we didn't just phone it in with this film. For me, anyway, I grew up loving all the classic horror movies that were made by the studio back in the 70s, and so it would be amazing to just see, people loving studio horror films again. And so, it starts with, us as filmmakers, giving quality genre films back to the public.